I have a new best friend in podcasting. His name's Paul. He has his own podcast called 7-Minute Leadership, and we're going to hear from him in this episode. Plus, we're going to hear about Nick Saban, and we're going to hear from Nick Saban. And there's a bunch of sports news in college swimming and college sports that I want to cover. But you're going to have to tune in to episode 89 to catch those tidbits.
Today we're going to break down a document that has made the rounds for years. It's Nick Saban's 5 Enemies of Greatness. This isn't a motivational poster. This is a leadership warning label. If you've ever led a team, run an organization, or tried to stay on top of your own standards, these 5 enemies will feel uncomfortably familiar. Before we get into them, let's talk about who Nick Saban is and why his voice carries weight. Nick Saban is one of the most successful leaders in modern sports history. He won multiple national championships, built dominant programs at multiple schools, and he did it over decades, not just a lucky season. And what makes him different is that he never sold hope, he sold standards. His teams didn't win because of hype, talent, or emotional speeches. They won because of discipline, consistency, and an almost stubborn commitment to doing the right things every single day. Saban didn't coach for highlights, he coached for process. And that's why his lessons translate cleanly into leadership outside of sports. So now let's get into the 5 enemies of greatness. The first enemy is entitlement. Entitlement shows up when success starts whispering lies in your ears. It tells you that because you did well yesterday, you deserve comfort today. It convinces people that past effort guarantees future rewards. In leadership, entitlement looks like leaders who stop preparing because they've earned their title. It looks like teams who believe their reputation will carry them through the whole season. It sounds like we've always done it this way, or we've already paid our dues. Saban was clear on this. You wake up every day entitled to nothing, not respect, not trust, not results. Those are all rented, and rent is due daily. If you're leading people who feel entitled, or you feel it creeping into yourself, performance will slide quietly before it collapses publicly. The second enemy is lack of discipline. Discipline is doing the work when no one is clapping. It's showing up on time. It's running the play the right way when you're tired, annoyed, or distracted. In organizations, lack of discipline shows up in small ways that feel harmless. Being late to a meeting, cutting corners on paperwork, ignoring small safety steps, allowing standards to flex based on your mood. Those small lapses don't stay small, they compound. Over time, discipline erodes, trust follows, and performance falls apart. Saban taught that practice is about doing it right, not getting through it. Leaders who tolerate sloppy habits should never be surprised by sloppy outcomes. The third enemy is choosing circumstances over vision. Average performers let conditions decide how hard they try. Great leaders hold the line regardless of weather, the workload, or outside pressure. This is where leadership gets uncomfortable, when budgets are tight, when morale dips, when people are tired, when external pressure shows up. Strong leaders don't change the standard because the day got harder. They adjust tactics, but the vision stays intact. If your leadership energy changes based on circumstances, your team will notice, and they will follow that inconsistency straight into mediocrity. The fourth enemy is self-pity. Self-pity is leadership poison. It sounds like nobody appreciates us, or leadership doesn't understand us, or it's not fair. Saban's teams were taught one rule: no excuses, next play. Self-pity kills ownership. It shifts focus away from what can be controlled and puts energy into complaints. Leaders who allow self-pity to spread create cultures where responsibility disappears. If you want to lose fast, feel sorry for yourself. If you want to lead, comfort reality and move forward. The fifth enemy is complacency. Complacency is the moment you think you've arrived. It's when winning becomes expected and effort drops quietly. Complacency turns champions into former champions. It creates blind spots. It lowers hunger. It convinces leaders that maintenance is enough. The moment you stop chasing improvement, decline starts immediately. Great leaders stay uncomfortable on purpose. They keep learning. They stay curious. They hold themselves to the same standard they expect from everyone else. And here's the biggest leadership lesson behind all five enemies. None of these show up loudly at first. They sneak in. They sound reasonable. They feel earned. And by the time leaders notice them, damage has already started. Nick Saban didn't build a dynasty by avoiding mistakes. He built it by refusing to tolerate these enemies inside of his culture. The question for you today is simple. Which one are you allowing right now?
Let's pause with today's fortune statement.
Coaches become more knowledgeable by immersing themselves patiently in the systematic teaching of the mental and emotional skills.
This is not a quote to admire. It's a prompt to reflect on. Think about how this applies to what you're working through right now, whether that's training, competition, coaching, or life beyond the pool. Better yet, write about it. Reflection turns ideas into habits. This statement is drawn from the book Mental Skills for Young Athletes by John Hogg, PhD, a longtime sports psychologist based in BC, Canada. You can find the book at swimisca.com. Mental skills are trainable, but only if you slow down long enough to practice them.
A high school player that's 17 years old in Texas or whatever state it is making a decision based on money, not on his best interest in terms of his development. That's all these guys should be focused on, is my development as a person, as a student, and as a player. They don't get it. They don't play when they're freshmen, and they want to go someplace else. Now, we've had 35 guys go out early for the draft. All right, so I got 32 phone calls. That's 32 teams times 35. That's over 1,000 phone calls. I've never been asked once how much a player plays as a freshman. When juniors go out early for the draft, they don't have any background on them, so they call the coach. Not once. It's what did you develop into? That's the most important thing. And I got 30 phone calls last year, 3 days before the draft. We had 6 first-round guys and 2 second-round guys. 30 phone calls. Never once got asked what kind of player a guy was. Take this story back to your players too. Not one question about what kind of player. What kind of character does he have? What kind of person is he? How's he going to fit in their organization? What kind of teammate is he? Does he have any leadership qualities? That's the only thing I got asked. They can see what kind of player you are. They want to know what kind of person you are. Can we trust you to represent our organization in a first-class way? That's important in every choice and decision that you make. Create value for yourself in all those areas.
Thank you, Coach Saban. Now, everybody's invited to a website and a associated email list about NIL, name, image, and likeness. Got a website at nil.cloh.org. And then when you're there are a few interesting prior podcasts that other people have put out that I think are well worth it. So
today, we are following the money inside one of the biggest, most recognizable brands in all of college sports, Penn State. We've got our hands on their official financial reports, and we're going to see exactly how a major athletic department really works. The total annual operating revenue for Penn State's athletic department is more than $254 million. That's a college sports program operating on a massive, massive scale. How on earth does a university's athletic department turn into a $250 million business? Where does all that cash come from? And maybe even more importantly, where does it all go? All the info we're looking at today comes straight from the source.
Yeah, every single number you're about to see comes directly from Penn State's incredibly detailed 103-page financial report that they have to file with the NCAA. So this isn't guesswork, this isn't speculation, this is the department's own accounting of how their operation runs.
Where does a cool $250 million actually come from?
That the vast majority of the income, nearly 3/4 of the whole pie, comes from just three main places: donations, big-time media rights deals, and of course, fans buying tickets.
Now let's zero in on the biggest slice. A whopping $64.5 million comes from contributions. This is pure donor power. We're talking about a massive, passionate alumni base and booster network just writing checks to support the teams.
Right behind that, you've got media rights clocking in at over $58 million. You can thank the Big Ten Conference's gigantic TV contracts for this. It's basically a fire hose of cash that gets sprayed over every single school in the conference. And you can never, ever forget the fans. Over $50 million. That's just from people showing up and buying a ticket to watch the games live. It just goes to show you how absolutely crucial it is to get people in those seats.
The money that keeps this whole thing running, it's not coming from student tuition. It's not coming from Pennsylvania taxpayers. No, this is a full-blown commercial operation, and it's fueled by donors, television, and fans. How much money comes directly from the university? Zero. From the state government? Zero. From fees tacked onto student tuition? Zero. Penn State Athletics pays its own way, completely. Okay, so we've got a pretty good idea of where that $250 million comes from. Now for the fun part. Let's flip the coin and see where all that money is going. The single biggest chunk, more than 1/3 of every dollar spent, goes to paying people. Right behind that, you've got two other huge buckets, money going directly to athletes and the cost of keeping all those stadiums and facilities running.
Let's dig into that personnel number because it's wild. The department spends over $84 million, $84 million, just on salaries and benefits for coaches, support staff, and all the administrators. That is the #1 expense in the entire budget, and it's not even close.
Seeing all that money going to the adults who run the programs, it naturally leads to the next question. In this brand new era of college sports, how much of that money is actually making its way to the athletes themselves?
Well, it's not just one thing anymore. It really breaks down into three main channels. You've got your traditional scholarships, your athletic aid, then you have the whole new world of NIL, which is name, image, and likeness payments. And finally, there are other educational benefits they can receive.
And when you actually put the numbers to it, it's pretty significant. The department is spending over $24 million on scholarships, another $18 million plus on NIL deals, and almost $5 million on educational awards. You add all that up, and you get to nearly $48 million going directly to the student athletes.
Now look, we can't have an honest conversation about college sports finances without talking about the 800-pound gorilla in the room. So for a minute, let's just isolate the financial force of nature that is Penn State football. The football program by itself brings in almost $147 million in revenue. That is more than four times what all the other men's sports make combined. And it's over 16 times the revenue of all the women's sports programs.
Let me put it another way. One team, one single sport, is responsible for more than half, 57% of the entire athletic department's income. Football is the engine. It pays for pretty much everything else.
Okay, so we've followed the money in, we've followed the money out, which brings us to the final and most important question of all. When you add it all up, does this $250 million machine actually make any money?
And here we go, the moment of truth. On the left, you've got total revenues. On the right, total expenses. And, well, you can see for yourself. Those two numbers are incredibly, almost unbelievably close to each other.
The difference between those two massive numbers is just over $223,000. Think about that. Out of $250 million flowing in and out, the net result for the entire year is a profit that's, maybe enough to buy a nice house in some parts of the country? It's basically a rounding error. And that's what leaves us with this huge question hanging over the future of college sports. Penn State is essentially operating as a nonprofit, running on razor-thin margins. So as the rules keep changing and schools are forced to share even more of that revenue directly with players, you have to wonder, is a break-even model like this sustainable? Or is the whole financial house of cards about to come tumbling down?
We need college football reform, and we need college football to work. And we've talked about this in past episodes of Heavy or Not, and we encourage you to check out the plan for a geographic remix of all the college conferences. North Dakota wants to enter the big-time football scene? Welcome. Sacramento State? Great. But they shouldn't be penalized with $5 million entry fees and lots of payments to college conferences. We should handle those things in a different manner, and we should allow for relegation and promotion. I hope you explore those reform ideas, and it's all online at the Substack Rodericus or else at 4rs.org.